Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about the new civilization of Carthage, specifically focusing on starting out as Carthage and some of the various leader and memento combinations that might be reasonable. We're going to be trying out 3, and then you guys can either comment below or upvote comments below in regards to which one you want to see continued as a run, but we will be talking through the civilization, and then we will be talking through the various options we are picking in terms of leaders to pair with Carthage. Alright, let's talk about advantages and disadvantages here for Carthage. The main disadvantage is an absolutely enormous one that's really bad for like 4 reasons, and that is you can only have one city. This is really bad, and this is entirely textures and informs everything that follows from Carthage, and makes Carthage a really weird type of civilization, but generally speaking, production is going to be stronger than gold. Everything that costs production in gold costs 4 times as much gold as it does production, although there are more positive multipliers for gold, so it's not really 4 times the value, but generally you gain a lot of value by transmuting towns into cities and then building really good buildings. Which brings us to the next point is the science buildings and the culture buildings cannot be purchased in towns, which means if you can't upgrade to cities, you don't have access to them. So this is really substantive as well. You're not going to have access to the culture and science buildings, and so culture and science in general are also going to be relatively difficult. Third is one of the advantages of towns is it produces a bunch of food and it ships a bunch of food to the capital. Without getting too into the math, you will get to the point where Carthage, your capital, has 60 turns to growth anyways, even though it has 7 towns feeding it food. And the reason for this is there's an exponential increase in cost for getting an additional growth event, and food falls off really hard. The point of food is to get new yields, to get new growth, and if that's not happening, it's functionally useless. So the towns are really bad in that regard. There's also this weird point where it's difficult to get the legacy path, golden age, for culture because you need to build 7 wonders. It's difficult to build 7 wonders out of one city because if you don't have the layout possible for doing it, or you are a bit behind on production or the culture to unlock these wonders to be able to build in the first place, you're going to have a bad time. So this is the main point at which Carthage really suffers. But, that being said, extremely explosive out the gate with their unique colonist, which gets extra embarked movement. You're going to want to settle on coasts almost exclusively. We'll get to that. And they can come around the edges of the map and look to settle kind of some far off places pretty well. They will get an additional population if settled to adjacent to a resource. This isn't the biggest deal, but it is nice. But the big part here in regards to those is you receive 2 merchants or colonists every time you create one, a colonist being your unique settler. And this is pretty strong. This means that when you produce your first settler, you will get 2, and you will get to 3 settlements really fast. Very explosive is Carthage in this regard, and so this is really good. Also, you don't need to invest as much production, so you can spend production on other things, which is good, because you have barely any production. And you're going to want to run stuff out of your capital. You're going to want your merchants out of your capital. You can buy merchants, though, and you will get 2. You can buy colonists, and you will get 2, and this is pretty neat. The biggest advantage is probably that Numidian cavalry is, or seems to me at least to be, the very strongest antiquity unit, just like, period. They cost a little bit more, but they get +1 combat strength per every unique resource assigned to your capital. With our practice run as Carthage, we got +17. We had over 50 combat strength, and we were one-shotting everything, and this was with 0 investment. We weren't using any mementos, and we weren't using a leader that gave any sort of combat ability. And so this is absolutely incredible. If you wanted to lean into this would be really strong. And in multiplayer, this is probably really strong. If you can get rolling with having a bunch of resources in your capital, this is going to be absolutely monstrous. A little bit slow to get online. It's not like an early game military bump, but this is very strong. And finally, I rather like the Punic Port. The Punic Port does allow you to slot in resources. Notably, you are going to gain in towns the ability to slot in codexes, so you can still get a golden age in science, but you are going to get the ability to slot in resources. Really like this from quality of life perspective, because you can plop down a new town, You can make a Kothin and a dockyard in it. You just buy them. And then you can plop in 3 resources that have food on them, and you grow really fast. And so this is pretty nice because food is more valuable the lower your pop is as a result of how the math works. And so this is going to allow you to be really, really explosive alongside the faster settlers. And also, I do think it scales pretty well, having production adjacency and food adjacency, and also some base food and gold. This is going to be very solid. You're going to want it in every single one of your buildings, and this has a kind of significant drawback. These have to be placed on the coast, must be on the coast, which means, and the coast is on the water, not adjacent to the coast, on the coast. This means that you will want every single one of your cities to be on the coast. This is a very significant investment cost, in that you have to put everything on the coast, which means inland cities you just won't want to settle, and the opportunity cost of losing the ability to settle an inland sea is difficult, or it is easy to overlook that is a cost that you pay when you are settling to be able to do this Kothin/dockyard. But if you start as Carthage, you unlock Spain in the Exploration Age. Spain, in particular, has a very, very nice transition from Carthage, and I think that this is also one of the really good ways of looking at Carthage is you are looking for a really strong Spain. They get extra gold towards converting a town into a city. Well, this bonus isn't as strong as if you enter the age exploration with a bunch of cities, but with Carthage, you're not doing that. You're entering with towns. So that's thing 1. But thing 2 is that the plaza, created by constructing the Casa de, the 2 buildings, the Casa Consistorial and the Casa de Contrastacion, both of these, you will get +2 gold in the settlement for every settlement in distant lands. This is really powerful. If you have 8 settlements in the Ancient Age, and you have those all that have a Kothin and a dockyard, per having the things that you have for Carthage, and then you settle, let's say, another 12 in distant lands, up to 20, definitely a reasonable thing if you are trying to push it in the Exploration Age, which you will be, then in every single one of those 8 cities, you'll be getting +24 gold, in addition to the 5 and 5 that you get from these other things. So this is quite strong, I think, as a transition into Spain, but overall, I think that Carthage is going to be a, roughly speaking, medium kind of power, unless you're playing multiplayer, in which case the Numidian cavalry will be absolutely terrifying. I think in general, in single player, one of the problems with going military is the AI settles bad cities. And if the AI settles bad cities, taking their city just doesn't feel that good, although you get to push them really, really far behind. So let's briefly talk through the civics, which are probably not that good in terms of scaling, but they do synergize with what you're trying to do with Carthage, at least in the Age of Antiquity. We have the Dockyard Unlock and also +15 trade route range. You'll generally want to be turning your towns into trade hubs anyways, and so the extra range is maybe not the nicest, but the extra +3 gold in the capital for every trade route that you get. This can get kind of big, pretty quickly. You're running 6 to 10 trade routes. This represents a good chunk of gold on top of what you're already earning. The Mastery does unlock the Gaulos, which gives gold towards purchasing buildings on the coast or navigable rivers, which is a tradition, and it's a pretty nice tradition. You also have increases the number of resources that may be assigned by the capital by 3, which helps you to boost up the Numidian cavalry. We have ship sheds, which unlocks the Kothin. Notably, I think it's probably going to be better to go for the Wisdom of Tanit first because of the way food scales, but maybe not. The ship sheds are going to unlock that. They're going to unlock the Unique Wonder. That is going to make it so you can't get pillaged. It's also going to give you some walls. Extra movement to naval units is kind of pretty shrug, although you will be pretty strong in that regard if you decide to push it, and you have a lot of stuff alongside navigable rivers. This will be something that you're interested in. Notably, navigable rivers do not serve as good places for building the Kothin and the dockyard, so you can't just go for navigable rivers. For the Mastery, you will get +1 range to naval units. This is pretty nice, and it's probably really nice in multiplayer, because I do think ships are particularly strong on navigable rivers, and the range means you can no longer be outranged by, archers and this type of stuff. You'll also get gold towards purchasing naval units. You can slot this in for a turn and buy a couple units and then slot it out. And then you will have the Sicilian Wars, which is the most substantive one. You have 20% gold from mining towns, 20% food from fishing or farming towns. I think a lot of your towns, you want to be pushing trading towns anyways, because if you do that, you get happiness and you can go over the settlement limit really easy. But if you don't do that, 20% gold, that's pretty nice too. I don't think you want to push fishing or farming towns because the food basically completely falls off the capital and is going to be useless. But I do think that this is something. But the +2 settlement limit, that's a lot of extra settlements, and you're going to need them in order to kind of develop a power base. And then we have here the mastery for +1 movement and sight to the Numidian cavalry. You can pair this with a memento that gives +1 movement for an absolutely insanely fast Numidian cavalry. They're really, really strong. And also a codex slot in the halls in towns, which allows you to actually push for the science legacy path. This will be a requirement. So in terms of scalability, you're basically getting this 25% gold to purchasing buildings on coastal or navigable rivers, and also the 20% in mining towns. If towns ever get buffed, because right now I think they're really weak, then Carthage will look a lot more attractive as a result of getting the extra gold in mining towns and food in fishing towns. If food ever gets buffed, which would be a really big buff to towns, this is maybe something to keep on the radar. But for now, I think that overall, pretty medium in terms of the scaling of your traditions. So, with that said, let's get into some of the options that we're going to talk about for Memento and Leader. Alright, so I think the strongest start that is generally strong on almost everyone is actually pretty bad on Carthage in terms of the mementos, and that is the combination of Groma for the extra expansionist attribute point and gold and sapphire flowers. This allows you to grow to a size 5 city really fast, go scout, scout, settler, settler immediately with most kind of setups / spawns, and this is really, really powerful. Going settler is less valuable when you get 2 settlers for the price of 1, and also you really need to know where you need to settle. So I think you kind of on Carthage generally want to go scout, 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 or scout, scout, warrior into your settler, and then you will get 2 settlers, and then this explosive advantage is much, much, much more diminished. And so I think that in general we are going to be looking for other options outside of this to pair with the various leaders that we are taking a look at, because it's not as good for Carthage, because Carthage already has the explosiveness, and I think you'll trip over your own feet getting, the settler out so fast, and then you don't know where the 2 settlers are going yet. You maybe miss on some turns. If you wanted to pre-scout your spawn, maybe this would be okay with Carthage and would be extra, extra explosive, but we're not going to try it out. We're not going to showcase it here today. I think that a general pairing, we're going to go into more specific ones, but a general pairing that is going to be good on Carthage is going to be going for the cultural attribute point and the science attribute point, especially if you don't have a lot of these mementos unlocked already. I do think this will be really solid because each of these will give you +1 culture and science respectively on every city center, since you are going to be settling as many cities as possible and pushing this early and also struggling with culture and science. I do think that this is a reasonable kind of way of approaching it, as well as getting any other type of thing that is going to allow you to get science or cultural yields with what you're planning on doing in terms of leader as Carthage. So, after getting into the first game, I did make a little bit of a mistake when talking about mementos, and some of the mementos we're about to discuss right now. So we're coming back to record and mention that this Great Imperial Crown, we misunderstood what it did. We thought it was +2 science in Tundra in towns, but it's +2 science per age in towns, that the town is settled directly on a tundra tile. So it's only going to happen once for a town that is settled on top of a tundra tile, and as such, I don't think it's as good as what it was during our explanatory session. This did just recently get changed in the patch forum today, and so I do not think that memento is going to be worth going for. Instead, as a general heuristic, I do think the science attribute point is generally going to be pretty strong, and is one that I would generally be suggesting. We also did change up what we did with Charlamagne, knowing that this scientific attribute point is what we wanted to go for instead of the Tundra memento. And so a couple adjustments, you're going to see and hear some of the strategies according to the various civs though here. So the first pairing that we're going to look at is going to be Augustus, who I think is probably the strongest start for Carthage, which is, a bit of an insult because Rome did in fact salt Carthage, but I do think they pair really nicely with Carthage. Taking a look at what you get out of Augustus, we get +2 production in the capital for every town. We're going to have 7 to 8 towns, and we're not going to upgrade them to cities because we can't upgrade them to cities. And so this advantage will be very strong. It will allow you to push wonders, an absolute ton of production in the capital, but notably also a ton of production on the capital really early on in the game. When other people are going to be doing their Groma slash Sapphire Flower start, and which some people call Bloom, when they are going to be doing that and getting 12 production, and they're like, woo, look at me with all my production, you'll be settling 2 cities and having 15 to 16 production, which is quite strong. Can't purchase culture buildings in towns solves a very significant culture issue in that you can't build these buildings normally, and also the monument in particular is going to be really good scaling into later ages because it has a diplomacy or a influence point that you get out of it, and so having this going into exploration age will be good, and also just the ability to unlock that influence little pip is also going to be good, and is going to allow you to, you know, do more stealing of civics and technologies, as well as playing nice with other people if you wanted to lean into trade and really ramping up the trade routes. As Carthage, it is going to be quite strong, and you are otherwise going to probably have a little bit of a difficult time finding gold sinks. Also, we have a 50% gold towards purchasing buildings and towns. Fantastic. This is really, really strong for Carthage because this is going to be where most of your gold is going, or it's going to be going to Numidian cavalry, but one of the two. The extra gold towards building and towns, it's going to synergize and be quite nice with you stacking more and more and more of it, because this is just going to be multiplicatively strong on the gold that you're getting and helping to shore up the fact that production is better than gold, and you can't get as much production because you can't upgrade things to cities. For our mementos for this, we will be doing Corona Civica, which gets unlocked underneath Augustus, I believe at level 5. We get +1 settlement per age, but plus 50% convert to city cost, which is functionally not a penalty at all. And then also, +2 science per age in towns in the tundra. We'll look to settle a few tundra towns. Normally, you don't want to keep things towns, so this doesn't scale that well normally, but since we have to keep things towns, the extra science per age in towns is going to be really, really nice. We'll look to settle the tundra early. This will solve our science problem, our ability to build culture buildings in towns. That'll solve our culture problems, and so with these two mementos, we should have a fairly balanced start and look to set ourselves up for a very strong exploration age, and maybe be able to, depending on how the capital rolls, maybe be able to push for a golden age in the culture sphere as well, with the extra production allowing us to really crush wonders down quite quickly. The next pairing we are going to have is going to be Charlamagne, and I think that this might be the very best civ for Charlamagne, but I'm not too sure. I think that this discussion is a little bit to unpack, but just very briefly, Maruya is probably the other one that is a decent shout, which has a bunch of happiness leaning, having a really, really strong happiness district. However, too much happiness is a bad thing because you can only celebrate every 10 years, and so extra happiness beyond getting you to celebrate every 10 years is not going to be all that useful. And so it could be the case that starting as Carthage lets you get a pretty significant leg up. However, going military starting as Carthage is going to feel kind of bad because taking settlements is going to feel bad for 2 reasons. 1, the AI settles bad settlements, generally speaking. Some of them are good, but 2, one of the big things you can sink your gold into is going to be the Kothan and the dockyard. You have to specifically get stuff on coast for this to be any good, and so you're looking for a narrow band of decently settled AI city that is on the coast in order to really make this shine. I just think that that's probably not going to play out that well, and you are going to be raising the cities most of the time, but getting everyone super far behind is maybe worthwhile, or just eradicating people off the maps may be worthwhile. Give yourself a little bit more space. The big benefit here is that you get 2 free cavalry units when unlocked, and also when you enter a celebration, so we want to unlock the cavalry as quickly as we can. This is going to be quite strong, especially because the Numidian cavalry, just to be clear, they cost extra gold. They cost extra gold, they are really expensive, they are really powerful, and in this way we are saving a lot of money by not needing to buy them, so we kind of have a gold savings in the same way Augustus does. We're just going to be getting units for free. +5 combat strength, totally gratuitous, unnecessary. They are just going to be one-shotting things, although I guess you just one-shot stuff earlier, and this will be fine enough. For mementos, we are choosing +2 happiness for every cavalry unit. We could choose plus movement for every cavalry unit. and this would probably be better in single player, but this seemed pretty good to try and ensure that we get to chain celebrations pretty aggressively once we get the cavalry tech. And to help us get the cavalry tech, we're going to go for Great Imperial Crown again, giving us +2 science per age in towns in the tundra. We're specifically going to reroll slightly aggressively to make sure that the first 2 settles we get are going to be in the tundra. That way we can push for this fairly early and have an explosive start, not just because we get double settler when we build our first settler, but also from us being able to push techs a little bit faster. Also, they have scientific, which is going to be a great shout. Depending on how things go, we are going to be playing one of 2 different options as our final option here, and that is going to be between the 2 Xerxes, which have some similar advantages, but both I think would pair well with Carthage, and so we'll play it based on what we get from the first 2 starts. If we get something where we have very little combat, for example, with Charlamagne, it just doesn't seem like the right thing to do, then we will probably go King of Kings. And if we end up having to rumble and don't get to trade very much with Augustus, then we are planning on going Xerxes the Achaemenid. But just to briefly look at both of these, because I think they're fantastic, we are going to be getting, for Xerxes, combat strength when attacking. This is kind of unnecessary, it's kind of gratuitous because the Numidian cavalry is so strong, but the gaining culture and gold when you capture a settlement for the first time, this is going to be nice. Probably raising a lot of settlements, looking to remove people off the map, maybe. Generally think that fighting the AI is not that strong, but it is something you could do. And we see the plus 10% gold in all settlements. This is doubled in settlements not founded by you. This is going to be multiplicatively effective with modifiers that give you extra gold towards purchasing buildings and towns in terms of your raw buying power. I think Augustus's bonus alone is better than Xerxes, but if you have enough gold resources, the multiplicative effect will be such that this will be better. And if you can find really good settlements to take from the AI, maybe you roll really good settlements from the AI, you can go aggressive. And if you don't, you're going to be pretty good at sitting back. But I also think Xerxes King of Kings transitions really well into playing Spain, which I think is probably going to be what you want to do in the exploration age, in that you're getting an extra settlement limit per age. This is fantastic when you are having a multiplicative effect. Just to take a look at the age of exploration here on Spain with your plaza, +2 gold in settlements for every settlement in distant lands. Every single settlement you settle in antiquity will be able to also have a plaza, and so if you have 9 of these, let's say, and then you settle 11 overseas in the next age, or even more because you have a lot more settlement limit, then you will be getting something to the tune of 22 gold in the settlement from the plaza alone, and this will be multiplicatively again effective with the extra gold in settlements. And so maybe you have an idea where you want this as Spain, and then you eventually, in the final age, go something really gold heavy like the Mughals or something like that, where they can buy wonders, they get plus 75% gold from all sources, something like this. And so maybe just kind of in terms of the overall trajectory of your run, Xerxes King of Kings makes sense. But also what makes sense is Xerxes the Achaemenid. I think for Xerxes King of Kings, Lotus Blossom might be able to pull its weight. If you have 200 gold income, what this gives you here is going to give you science and culture per turn equal to 4% of your gold income. So if you have 200 gold income, this will be 16 yields. I think this is going to be a little bit slower and overall just a little bit weaker even by the end of the age if you are able to make good on it. I think it's going to be a little bit worse than the Great Imperial Crown, which, as we mentioned earlier, is going to give you, it's going to not tell you what it gives you, tragic, here. And it's going to give you +2 science per age in towns and tundra. I think that this is just going to be stronger, and that this pairs really, really nicely with Carthage, and so this is probably good no matter what you do. But we're also doing Clipius Virtuitus, which is less militarily focused than what we did with Charlemagne, but I think getting 1 production in the capital for every town, I think this is strong, allows you to push wonders. You don't necessarily have to go to war in order to steal wonders if you were going Xerxes King of Kings, and we would do the same memento combo with Xerxes the Achaemenid, but just in terms of what we can do with him. The extra trade route limit with all of the leaders, fantastic, considering whenever we build a merchant, we get 2 merchants, and we have some bonuses towards being able to push more merchants or more trade routes, in that every trade route gives us 3 additional gold per our social policies, or not our policies, but our civics. We also gain 50 culture and 100 gold per age when you create a trade route or road. Fantastic. We are going to have an avenue by which we can get a whole bunch of culture. And then finally, +1 culture and gold per age on unique buildings. We are going to have 2 unique buildings. This is going to allow us to handle the culture, and then we are going to be able to handle the science with the imperial crown and a little bit of production with the Clippius Virtutus. And so very well-rounded type of approach here. In particular, I do think if you are going to look to get a yield off your leader, because the Great Imperial Crown pairs so well with Carthage, I think that you are probably going to want to go and try and find a cultural oriented leader that will allow you to generate culture in some way or form, that will be able to pair pretty well. But I do think we are going to look at one of the Xerxes, depending on the vibes of the first 2 other starts. So we have a very interesting start here, in that this start normally for most countries would be a reroll, but for us, I think we kind of like it because we maybe want a little bit of tropical, and we're near on top of the tundra already, whereas we'd rather just be adjacent to it. But the presence of a lake means that, or suggests that there's going to be land on either side, which means we maybe have a nice little bucket of territory that we can settle that's going to look really nice and hopefully be really tundra heavy in order to lean into this. Also, getting resources is generally really good, but not having a lot of resources in the capital for this age specifically is actually going to be pretty nice, because that leaves us more space for wonders. If we had a bunch of resources in the capital and we had a bunch of tiles that were also in deep sea or coast, then we wouldn't be able to build as many wonders, we wouldn't have as many squares, and so this actually might be a really good start. And if we could pick one resource to have to slot in early, it would undoubtedly be cotton. If we could choose one resource to also have on top of that, it would be gold. But, beggars can't be choosers. We'll take a little bit of a settle, and we'll get started on things. I think we're going to go triple scout into something else, because we really need to nail down where our scouting spots are. But we know the tundra is down in the south. I think for our first scout only, we're going to send them up north and look to see if we can get anything going. We do see we get another resource in here that is going to be attached to Carthage, and so probably we have the best adjacencies when we have a lot of coastal stuff, so we're probably going to put our unique district here. But we are scouting up for our first scout. We will go animal husbandry because we have way more chops than we have mines, but for our first scout, we're sending him up because there's more territory up here. He's more likely to get goody huts, whereas the goody huts that are in the back are going to be more likely to be picked up or remain there for some time. We're just going to go another scout, and we are going to be scouting around the map looking for nice goody huts that we can pick up, as well as, looks like the tundra is extending pretty far north, as well as other resources we maybe want to settle. But we're probably going to shift left or right and look to mainly look along the coast, because we are only settling coast. Not exactly the role we were looking for on our first goody hut, but a relatively high-powered one. We can choose between 15 production and 75 gold, since every cost of everything is going to be 4 times as much gold as it is production. Even for a base kind of country, this production would be, this gold would be better. But since we're a Caesar and we can buy stuff on the cheap in the towns, we are going to go for the gold. Not only that, we don't really want to push the production too hard in the capital, because we aren't going to we don't have things we want to really build that badly yet. We want to, after we finish this, maybe build a saw pit. We could brick this if we wanted to, but I don't think that's exactly how we want to play this. I think we're going to go for our third scout here. This one's going to loop to the right and then come up and look to pick up this goody hut, and the last one will do a long sweep looking to see what we can see in regards to where we can settle. But it is very exciting that we have this lake. This means we're going to get some inland settles. This means we're going to have a lot of really good opportunities for settles, as opposed to having to rake our way along the coastline. So this is looking like an absolutely outstanding roll, despite the fact that we are not having a lot of resources in our start. We can go for 60 culture. absolutely going to go for 60 culture over the other option here, which is going to be very good for us. For our discovery chance, we will get this, and then we have a narrative choice. We're going to go for build 3 monuments. We are going to be buying monuments. More than happy to do this. And for our civic, we have a little bit of an option, but I think we're just going to go for mysticism. In particular, I think we're going to go for the God King throne, or the God King, whichever one that's called. That gives us all yields, because we're going to have a little bit of trouble getting science and culture generally. And they also did nerf your ability to go for the diplomatic influence one, but we are, oh baby, we have so much. So this looks like this is the coast over here. We're gonna have a lot of territory to be able to settle, at least on this right side. This left side might just be coast, but I think with the river extending this far, we are actually in a really good position here as we look to kind of keep scouting around. For our government, I think that we are going to either want to do despotism or classical republic as a general heuristic. We don't really want to train infantry units. Gaining science percentage would be reasonable. I think we're going to go for the culture though, because sometimes we will like the wonders. The food and the production towards buildings really going to be wasted on us because we are going to have so many towns and one city. Not going to be very good. I think we'll go classical republic. So if we had something like double food resource, we might be able to go for the settler right now, but we didn't roll on any of our goody huts any food, which would have also been nice. So now we're gonna have to build something. We have 7 turns on a growth. I think what we're gonna do is go for a saw pit, and when we finish the saw pit, then we will be size 5 anyways, regardless of the growth time, and we will be able to go for a settler. By breaking that tile, we also gain a food, or we gain a thing that we can focus on. I think that we are going to go for the woodworking, because in general we're gonna like this, although working this would also be decent. I think this is overall 3 yields. We're going to slightly prefer it, and so we're going to be going for that here. Actually, we maybe there's a world where we actually want to actively brick this tile at some point for the monument, and this one is slightly better because the monument has a mountain adjacency, and then we would be setting ourselves up for getting a key here and our quay here. Our key here and our unique building here, and maybe that's slightly better, so we will go with that. We have another growth as well, so I think that it was silly of us to choose, and we'll go for the wood over there. And so when we finish this, we'll incidentally get a little bit more construction as well. If we had a goody hut that gave a lot more gold, we would be able to buy another scout, which I think is something that would be in the realm of reasonability. I believe they are costing 120 right now, but we are not quite at that point, because sending a scout this way would feel pretty good given how wide this continent edge is appearing to be here. We're going to have a nice settle over here. The gypsum is going to be really bad for us in this age in particular, because it gives +2 production and +4 anything not in the capital. Only the capital can slot this in, so it's going to be underwhelming, but we're very happy to see cotton as well as to see wine here, especially if we use this same seed on Charlamagne. Wine's going to be really good. So we actually do roll this on a goody hut for some gold. I think we're going to have a little bit of a compromise. We're going to go the gold, and we're going to buy the warrior just so we can pick up this goody hut and get a little bit of scouting down, but also to protect us against any of these things in here. We're going to go straight away for that. The goody hut is often going to be worth maybe half as much as a warrior, something like this. And so by securing a little bit more on the goody hut front, we hope to recoup at least some of our losses and then have this warrior available. It is quite a few techs before we unlock the Numidian cavalry, and so because we need to get to the wheel in order to get it, it's going to be a little while, and so we definitely want some semblance of a military before we get to that point. So we see here, this archer thing is going to be worth roughly the equivalent of 70 gold because we lose 50 gold and we pick up an archer. Oh, that's an archer, not a slinger. That's kind of hot. We're actually going to go with that. I was about to say we're going to go with the science, but since that is an archer and not a slinger, we will be going with that, and we will incidentally have a little bit more flexibility to be able to pick up another goody hut, and so we will be able to wrap around more aggressively with our scouts and pick up even more goody huts. Things are shaping up pretty well because we're really liking the resources and potential settles here where we are near tundra or on tundra, so we will be able to work work it. We see that this is grassland over here, so I'm not sure we want to settle that immediately, but here, this settlement looks pretty good, where we could work rough tundra over here. We have few overlaps with Carthage proper, just a few, and we will be able to get this coastal tile, but also this, if we take a look here, coastal, 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 coastal. This is a really good spot for our Cothan, which gets an adjacency bonus to production. This is +5. That's pretty hard to achieve, and a place that has a 7 production building that is ageless and really, really ripe for specialists is going to be particularly attractive. So even if we settle down here instead, which is kind of a reasonable-ish settle, a lot of overlap with Carthage, we will definitely want to be building in here something good. If we settle here, we get to work all of these, and so then we could settle here, and work all the salt. Shout out to Carthage. We cry every day when we remember the salting of Carthage. But we can work all these. The salt's not really going to be useful for us, that useful in this age, but they're all on tundra, 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 which represents tundra, a tundra of science. We get our first meeting here with Tubman. I think that we're going to go for a friendly greeting because we are looking to play a little bit more friendly with Augustus relative to kind of some of the other options we have. We have more than enough to accept her missive and send our own, so we're going to send one out, looking to get a little bit of cultural influence on up. And I do want to emphasize, so far, our start is on the slow side. This turn 16, with some experimental strategy that we were doing with Ben Franklin as Maria, as Kumai, we had by turn 16 built a production building, 2 scouts and 2 settlers, but that was with the Bloom strategy that's really explosive. We're not doing that as Carthage because I don't think that we can afford to kind of commit our mementos to the Bloom strategy, especially when we have so much power. Spend 2 turns of happiness. We'll gladly spend 2 turns of happiness for that. That's a pretty good roll for us. But we are on the verge of finishing our building here. And when we finish this, then we will be moving on to the scout. So it is going to be a little bit slower, but then once it finishes, we will have 2 settlers. We have some good spots kind of already scouted out for these settlers. So even though this is a little bit slow, we get to catch up here. And then once we catch up, then we will be able to go up to 5 settlements really quick, because in terms of what we're looking to go irrigation next. And with all that extra science on that tundra that we are going to get off the 2 towns that we get from our single settler, I think that we will be able to get irrigation pretty quick into probably masonry, maybe writing, but we do want to have some outlets for buying tiles. We could go for our unique buildings. We also are going to have access pretty soon here, our mysticism. So, despite it still getting nerfed, I think City Patron Goddess would be a decent shout, but I think the most flexible one is going to be God of the Sun for us, for our Pantheon, because we are going to, from it, be able to generate gold and science. For most of these are going to represent for us 1 culture, 1 science, 2 gold, 1 food, and 1 happiness. But also, happiness is going to be useful for us, because if we ever want to go over the settlement limit, it'll be nice to be able to put happiness in towns in some way, other than resources. And we aren't seeing us having a very good role when it comes to happiness resources. This would have been nice. We see the dyes give happiness, but we don't see any of the 2/2 happiness resources anywhere around here so far. Not seeing any wool, not seeing any, not even up here do we see any other ones. And so maybe it's going to be a little bit better to have the flexibility of that. We have still 3 turns. I think we're going to settle 1 city right here, which incidentally, this city, if we move it over 1, we would be able to work the iron mine, have more overlap with Carthage. I think we're still going to settle it here anyways, and then we, I think, are going to settle 1 city down here, unless something looks fantastic over here to the left. I want to make a bit of a point of emphasis with our mementos specifically here. We are using Corona Civica, and here this is giving us +1 settlement per age, right? With the downside of 1 additional convert city cost. We just finished our first settler. When we finish our first settler, we get 2. We decided to settle here because we're going to have a really, really juicy tile available here. This coastal tile is going to be adjacent to 4 coasts for that +4 production, so I think that settling here is a little bit better, and we're going to settle over here. we are, as a result of going irrigation first and having that extra slot, we can go straight away for our 4th and 5th city here on our colonist, rather than stopping for the altar. Stopping for the altar maybe makes some sense. We get to put it down here. We get to complete this adjacent to the capital quarter, which would give us +1 science and +1 culture. This is definitely something we're interested in, but I think that we're going to push this instead forward and look to get down some settles as things go. Also, by settling here, we're adjacent to resources, so we are going to get +1 and be able to get +4 science straight away, boosting our science output by like 30%, and then we're going to be able to find a city over here and a city kind of in here that is also hopefully going to be able to both hit some tundra tiles right at the outset here. So very kind of slow initially. We could have done the food bloom start, but I do think that this one maybe scales a little bit better because we're just going straight into 4th and 5th city, not stopping on, you know, a 3rd city like a normal start. All right, you guys, I can't read, which is a terrible curse, but looking back over our what is this, mementos, we see that this is actually 2 science per age in towns in tundra. We thought that this was applying to all the tundra tiles. It's not. It's only applying to if the town itself is settled on the tundra. So I think we're going to settle here because we want to settle on the tundra in order to solve the problems that we kind of are beset for ourselves. So now this town gets 2 science, which, to be fair, this is still going to be fairly solid because we are going to be able to increase, but not anywhere near what we thought we were going to be able to here as a Caesar. So that is a little bit unfortunate. We will be able to immediately grow each of these twice, though, because they do start out immediately next to a resource, and so if they're next to a resource, we can grab 2. So I think we're going to grab the culture tile here, and then I think we're going to grab the tile that gives us a little bit of food, and now we will be able to slot in several resources. We will move this on over to the town that doesn't have very much food, because all of these are city slottables here. Actually, we'll take the production in the capital still. And so we will be on the lookout, though, for trying to get at least another 2 settles on top of tundra. This will give us, you know, +8 science, which is pretty solid, and we are well on our way to the other 2 settlers coming in here. So our 2 other settlers are away. We have one that's coming up over to here, looking to use the 2 cotton and still be able to make a Kothan over here. We're probably going to use another settlement on that river or on that lake. It's going to be very, very convenient for us. And also another one's coming down to the tundra over here, going to be right underneath the silver resource in terms of where we are putting this town. So we are about to get up to 5 towns here. But I did want to make a quick point about a little bit of reflection on this. I do think that this is a little bit ambiguous in terms of how it reads, and we thought it was 2 science per age in just all tundra tiles. It's just in the town itself, and as a consequence, I think that this is just not as good as the scientific attribute point, which gives you +1 science per age on the palace and city halls. This applies to all city halls, and including the capital, and so I think that this will just scale better and be more flexible, and you know, you can use it for extra things. So everything, I think we're going to insert a little bit of either text or video regarding that, but I do think just the scientific attribute point going to be very, very solid for playing Carthage, and I think this would have been what we'd prefer to go with. Technically, I think that in this, it might actually be better that we hit the science for this game because we are going to be hitting some of the earlier breakpoints with +6 science rather than +5, but we also had all these turns in Carthage proper where we would have had 1 additional point had we started with the attribute point instead. We are keeping food, a little bit of food slotted on the towns. This is going to yield us a little bit more gold. Gold is starting to come up at a decent clip. As we settle Thene here, we're almost certainly going to buy some sort of district here, or maybe we buy a fishing key. We actually have to work our way over here pretty hard in order to make sure that we do get to build our unique district over here. So maybe we let this kind of stand here as we kind of just get some various woodcutter type tiles. And so I think it's probably going to be a purchase of a saw pit right here, which will help us to generate more gold and keep on going. It's going to be a little bit of time before this settler gets on over to make the town over there, but things are looking good, and we also are floating quite a bit of influence, able to accept missives. I think what we're going to do is we're going to take a look and find the person who is the least friendly with us, and we are going to send them a farmers market treaty, which will allow us to maybe generate some gold. They accept it rather than promoting it, which is going to be nice because these places will get a little bit more food. That'll be faster access to resources, faster access to tiles, and we are turn 30, but now we're kind of caught up-ish. Turn 30 it's going to be slow for a 4th settle, but not super slow, but we have that 5th settle coming in right now. And also, once we complete Wisdom of Tanit here, we are going to get extra purchasing power next to coast or navigable rivers, which is something that we're generally going to look to push for. And then we could go ship sheds into Sicilian Wars for an additional +2 settlement limit, which is going to allow us to settle the 6th and 7th city here, or rather town. But then we're going to hit eventual wall, because these towns will get eligible to become cities, and we won't be able to bring them up to cities. Also a little bit unlucky in terms of our overall roll with regards to happiness here. We definitely should have moved this over if we have access to that resource. So this will be the next growth we get here. We'll take this and we'll slot in the resource here in order to make them happy. So it's turn 32, and we have 5 total settlements put up. Also, just wanted to note, in the aggregate, I think that we have a relatively low roll on the resources we have available. The extra production towards training units is kind of medium, although we will get faster units out from Carthage that are in terms of getting settlers and also getting merchants. So maybe the fact that we'll be blitzing out merchants, this is something okay. But other than that, the only thing to really write home about is the cotton, and we would love to be having camels and gold as resources. I suppose to some extent we will be able to get Numidian cavalry with the various silver sources, so those are kind of okay as well. We're probably going to look to settle up near Renetu to pick up the camels over here, which are going to be somewhat useful for us. Also, it looks like kind of big arc of resources, and again, we have to settle either on coasts or we have to settle on lakes. But we're going to get 2 lake settles, I think. I think we're going to be able to find something in here that looks somewhat reasonable to utilize these 2 other lake tiles that this city will not, in order to make sure that we get our unique district down. And also, it's going to be adjacent to coast for an eventual Spain transition. Really going to value getting this from Ashoka here. +3 food per town is going to be absolutely fantastic. Represents like a 50% increase in food in a lot of our towns. Really going to let us to start picking up these tiles and resources faster. You can see the gold income is starting to get really strong here. We're going to be able to start buying a lot of buildings soon, and that's going to be great. And that's hopefully going to also include altars to help pick up a little bit of science and culture, as well as monuments. We do have an objective right now for monuments, so that would be really good as well. So we pick up a writing right here. We are going to be looking to work on a library as soon as we finish Hanging Gardens. Hanging Gardens, we're getting a whole lot of production towards getting that off of us having the number of towns, 8 production +8, so this represents 40% increase in our production over baseline, which is going to allow us to hopefully be able to grab these. Also, we were waiting to be able to grab that before picking up a slinger in Carthage. We are a little bit concerned about those ships heading up, but we want to buy the slinger, and we wanted to have this slight discount there. So we are going to have a little bit cheaper of a slinger, and we are going to be able to go for some things. In terms of tech, we do have an objective to go for masonry, and so we will go for that, or rather to go for a triple monument. So I think we're going to go for that. We could also do this. Steel technological advancement. Maybe this is actually a little bit better. We do have some floating accumulated influence, and we have plenty of stuff to buy still in all these cities because we haven't really started buying just yet, and so that is going to be good for us. I think we're going to start our first buy though, which is that we are going to buy something here. We're going to take a look inside, and we are going to say just kidding because we wanted to get an altar there in order to start picking up some of these science and culture yields that we can get from the altar, as well as to prep our putting our unique district on this lake, but we cannot afford it, so that is going to be unfortunate. We do have a discount if stuff is coming in close to the coast. We currently have that slot in terms of 25% towards purchasing buildings on coast or navigable rivers, and so that is going to be well, actually it's going to be in here, not on the coast. And so once we get to the coast, though, we will be in better shape. This is also a really good square because it's adjacent to 2 resources, 4 libraries, and also eventually specialists, so we don't want to put any ageless buildings in that socket. So we hit turn 40, which is the time trial that we wanted to do. We did want to give ourselves enough time to get onto this 5-city boom, which I think is a power spike for Carthage overall. We have a few plans in place. We have this Hanging Gardens coming in. We are going to take this out soon. We are currently in the process of researching Sicilian Wars, which will give us 2 settlement limit. So I think after we finish this, Hanging Gardens, we might not even stop for the library. We might just go for settlements 6 and 7. And so really starting to dot, the map. And here we have, the enemies on 2 settlements, 3 settlements, this type of thing. And so we are going to be like leaning into this power spike, but this is going to be the last kind of really quick settlement uptick. And so we maybe get a settlement over here, we maybe get a settlement here, have a nice little kind of section for ourselves. But if you want to see us continue the run as Augustus, feel free to comment down below and or upvote other comments that are asking for Augustus, because whichever one seems to be the most popular in the comments section is going to be the one we continue as. Did be a little bit scuffed by going, I think that this great imperial crown, not exactly what we thought it was going to be, and so it's not going to be that good. But I do really like the additional settlement limit in terms of the nature of how things play out as Carthage, and maybe this is actually just mandatory as Carthage, but I think that we're going to still try and, as Charlamagne, pick a science civic or a science-oriented memento in order to make sure that we hit earlier our ability to go with a bunch of clip-clops and horsies and the like. Okay, so we roll an absolutely tremendous start. It's unfortunate that we aren't going to have other cities, and so the sugar and also the gypsum aren't going to be as good as 2/2 tiles, but we also did a bit of an audible here. We decided to change both of our mementos into being both science ones. We went a +1 scientific attribute point instead of +2 culture on towns in Tundra, because this wasn't applying to all the tiles, and so we're going to make this a little bit of a change, and I think that this will be a bit kind of roughly the same, but the extra attribute point being spent will scale better into later ages because we will be 1 further down the tree. We also decided to go for Dotaku instead of the happiness, because the entire point of the happiness on the cavalry was to get more free cavalry units, get more of that really strong Numidian cavalry, that is probably just the strongest unit in antiquity. Actually, not even probably. I just it just is the strongest unit. You might be able to get more bonuses from someone other than Carthage, but the unit itself by itself just is absolutely stupendous. And so in order to get more of these, we need to do more Golden Ages. And to that extent, the happiness would be useful, but we have to do more Golden Ages after we've already unlocked the Numidian cavalry. And I think Dotaku is going to allow us to, as quickly as we possibly can, without re-rolling for a specific natural wonder or something like this, to get and unlock our thing. So what we will do is we will settle our city here, and then again we have really good resources in the gold. This is exactly what Carthage wants, and the wine, this is exactly what Charlamagne wants. We handle the mementos used to handle science, and then the wine and also us going the government that goes culture used to handle culture. Although we could go the science government instead, given that we are trying to rush down the tech, but now we get +1 science per age on palace and city halls. That's all city halls. We could have notably gone +1 settlement limit on Charlamagne in addition to this, and that would have also been somewhat reasonable, but that will instantly give us several tech, or 50 points of tech. So instead of it being 9 turns to pottery, it's only 5 turns, which means that we can go scout into production building. And so this is definitely a reasonable kind of adjustment. I think what we will do is we will see what we see with the first 2 scouts and then make an adjustment accordingly. Fantastic roll here. We actually really don't need to trigger celebrations immediately, and every celebration we have is going to make them cost more, so we actually don't want happiness this early on, but plus food is probably the best thing you can roll for your very first thing, because you will get an extra expansion very quick. We will go for the rough tundra, looking to pick up the gypsum, but we are going to be able to have a little bit more explosive start off the back of that, and we already kind of are locked in. We're settling, no matter what happens, we're settling this cotton in some way or another, because cotton is absolutely insane. And so knowing that, we probably are going to end up going 2 scouts. If we can find anything somewhat reasonable along the coast to the south, we will just go coast north, coast south, and then we will not need an additional scout, and so we could go production building. I don't know exactly where we put it, kind of a little bit awkward, kind of a little bit cramped. We will maybe expand up in a direction where we're breaking fewest amounts of mine tiles. So maybe we come this way, but it's like we're only breaking mine tiles everywhere, so maybe off to the left towards the river. We are doing insane on pacing right now, even relative to the Bloom start of going for the extra food to be able to go settler after scout with an additional production building. During our time test that we did this with Kumai as Ben Franklin, we got turn 16 where we would have all that finished. We're going to hit turn 16 with that, with this science bloom, off the back of being able to go scout production building and now into settler, but this settler is going to be 2 settlers, and so we will have scout production building settler, but the settlers will not yet have settled, and they'll be a little bit closer to home. We do experience a little bit of awkwardness in that the 2 places that we want to settle are blocked. We want to settle somewhat close to here, I think, because we can work these lakes, or we can put our unique district inside the lake because it's coast, this type of thing. And we also notice wine here, and so I think we're going to settle up here and up here somewhere, and importantly, we're going to try and settle on freshwater. Freshwater gives you +5 happiness, not the end of the world for most civs, but we do want to make it work with Charlamagne specifically, and so we would be picking amongst these, almost certainly going for this freshwater tile, which is going to make it take a while for us to eventually pick this wine up, but we will be settling next to this wine, so we will be able to grow immediately. Also, just wanted to note this formation here. 4 mountains next to 1 tile. Going to be an absolutely tremendous monument when we hit the exploration age and be able to put a monument into here. We are super high rolling us getting food, and we had a goodie hut over here that was food plus science. We're going to grab science most of the time. We're going to grab food, at least at the outset here, pretty aggressively, although food is starting to fall off for us a little bit here, so maybe we should have gone the culture one actually. But in terms of this, we're going to go for mysticism first here, and we are about to complete the settler, and we won't know what to build. Now, in terms of us getting as quickly as possible, our ability to unlock the cavalry, we are not quite doing that absolutely 100% rush, because we're going to stop for writing and we're going to choose the government that goes culture. I do think that this is a little bit more solid overall, but it will be a little bit slower. But for here, we'll keep tool making in until we get up to the point where we will get the science. But here, the scouting is real awkward. The scouting's real awkward over here. I'm not super in love with the fact that we don't really have settles that don't involve us dispersing people. We have a couple of more of these things. We maybe should have gone triple scout, which was kind of our intuition as to what was good with Carthage anyways, but we couldn't resist making the timing of the 16 turns where we would have settler here, and so not being able to resist, we did go for it. But in retrospect, unless we already knew the map, this might be slightly worse than what we could have done. We're looking at probably settling here and then probably settling on this tile here, not really knowing what we're getting ourselves into, other than a little bit of wine. Like, this settle might be better, but we're not exactly sure. We are going to be neutral greeting every single civ with the understanding that we generally are going to be okay rumbling if we have to. We would love a research collaboration, though, at this point in the game, so we'll see if we can swing it in, knowing that we have enough of this to accept, and she does accept it, which is going to be fantastic for us. Plus 17 science should be cruising along much better now. Unfortunately, without the tech here for sailing, this scout is hopelessly trapped. We could reload, but we'll just take the L. We are looking to swing around the mountain in order to pick that up. This is going to slow us down quite a bit, but we are producing, or have produced, a new scout from out of here. We're going to just look to scout straight in and come over here and see what these lakes look like. And we've decided to kind of shift over and just hope that this settler finds a reasonable kind of spot behind this scout to settle, having seen the 2 sheep, which are going to give production and happiness, which is kind of something we're into, wanting to push happiness or wanting to push production. And so I figured that there's probably going to be a reasonable looking settle over here. It looks like this is probably going to be the settle for us, but we're going to scout around and try and find a little bit better. But this is a high risk situation. Maybe we have less variance if we just go triple scout instead of the faster, kind of more explosive route. So we currently are pretty fortunate in that we're working 1, 2, 3 production tiles. We have the brickyard, which is going to be good. We're going to be working this. We are currently working this fish as well in order to move on towards the wine. But I think we might do the gold first. I'm not entirely sure. But we're going to put the granary here so that we can complete the quarter. It's adjacent to the capital. This is going to be food and science. We probably want to be a little bit more aggressive with this than we otherwise would want to, because we're going to have a hard time getting both of those yield. A bit of a high roll that we did not have in the last stage, in that we are getting propositions for getting the agreements for culture. In a perfectly ideal world, we would just get way more science in terms of our strategy of going early wheel, but this works out for us pretty well as well. Settling Hippo, we get an extra growth because Carthage gets an extra one if you settle on it. We're going to split actually where we are putting stuff. The extra food in Hippo will help it to grow much faster. We have 5 turns on a growth, and we have a lot of tiles that we do want to pick up here in order to get this place going. So rather than building anything in Carthage here, we are just going to click a shift enter to force end the turn after we move the scout. The reason being is we want to build a library, and this will store up our construction and cause it to overflow, allowing us to kind of store our construction, slingshot the library, and by getting the library faster, we're going to be able to get the tech faster. This will represent what is this, 20% increase, 20 to 30% increase in the amount that we are producing here. We'll also pick this up, which is actually, we'll pick this up because the extra culture will be nice when we're celebrating, and the extra food will be nice earlier on. Food is pretty strong, and we will be just moving our units again. We decided to scout down a little bit here, looking for a slightly different spot. I think we're going to settle in here, and this will be pretty good. We will hit the, this and this in terms of resources, because this is blocking our ability to settle, which is maybe a reason to have gone an additional scout. But you know, you live and you learn. We're not going to build anything here. We're instead going to make sure we have moved all the units we want to move. Yikes. Well, kind of nice, but also yikes. Yikes because we see the guy, but nice because we get ourselves some wine maybe at some point. And now we will finish the research here for writing, and we can put down the library, and the library will only take 3 turns to build. We're going to put it down here. It's going to have 2 resource adjacencies, which is going to be perfect for the library, but also when we finish this quarter, we will gain an additional culture and science. And so really trying to play into that as much as we can here in Carthage, at least at the outset here, because we are struggling on those fronts. For technology, we're going to now go for irrigation. And then following irrigation, we will go for the wheel. Actually, let's go for masonry first instead. Irrigation is going to give us the +1 settlements limit. I don't think we want to build a settler until we're ready to kind of get close to building 2, this type of thing. And this will let us finish the quarter because the monument will be worth building on the tile that we had just covered. And so because of that, we will be able to build something slightly better. I think this works a little bit better. I'm not 100% sure if that's going to be better after this. After this, though, we will probably go for great steel, look to produce a wonder off the back of, you know, our additional production. We're not getting additional production in the capital. We just have regular old production because we're not playing Augustus. Big sad. One nice thing about Carthage is this event where we can choose between production towards constructing buildings or in the capital. We can always choose production in the capital, which is going to be nice. We are going to get 2 growths out of here because we settled on the next to a resource here. So we have to make a little bit of a decision point. I think that we do just want to, as quickly as possible, get into the hides. So we're going to do this, and then we can even, next turn, buy a building. I don't think we are working the mine yet, and once we're working the mine, this will be a little bit better, so maybe we wait for Carthage to grow. We're going to need another 13 turns, but we can buy a building here and then come in and get this camp. I guess we'll just be waiting 6 turns to be able to get the camp. Also nice is going to be the pearls are going to be useful for juggling stuff around a little bit better. We do want to settle this eventually, so the first guy we probably take out is this, but we are seeing a very nice development here in that a very awful development in that Ada is going to settle this city. Damn. This actually would have just been such an insane city for us. Getting double wine plus horses. Probably worth us going for. Maybe even immediately just get the settler down. Even though we will be going over the limit. And then, you know, fair enough, we will get irrigation soon. Also, masonry, nice because we're getting production on mines and quarries. We have a lot of those in Carthage right now. So that represents a lot of production for us. Ada does denounce us, which is kind of okay with us, considering we want to rumble relatively early, and we're afraid she's going to settle our beautiful, beautiful city. Notably, we could go something like Sacred Waters for adjacency for coast, lake, and navigable river tiles. We're going to have several instances where we would be able to generate 3-ish happiness, this type of thing. I still think we're going to go God of the Sun in order to kind of pick up the slack on the culture and the science. I don't think there's a better way for us to pick up the slack there, and so I think this is going to be the building for us. So we have a little bit of an inflection point here, in that, okay, we're getting our mines and quarries. We can go for and probably make use of the writing mastery here. And maybe we should have even done this before this, but we wanted the production. We could also go irrigation and do that one really nice settle. I think the idea here is that we can steal sailing from Ada. And let's check. We're on turn 31, though. We'd kind of like to hit the wheel in time, but I don't think we're going to do it. And so I think we're going to go for, I think it's more solid for us to go for this here, into stealing tech from Ada as things progress. And maybe we can pick up some additional science. We are building the Great Steel here. In 7 turns, we will expand and take this, and then we will start a buy-in ourselves some buildings. Although, maybe we get more out of the buildings right now than we would get by the marginal amount we save in terms of additional gold yielded / more tiles worked, something to this effect. We will... The problem here is we brick the woodcutter if we build over it. I think that we do want to build there specifically to be able to rake that back and then go for the mine into this. And since we're going mine heavy, brickyard's going to be good. We're not killing too many adjacencies. We have a double adjacency here, so I think we go brickyard here maybe. Alternatively, we can look to push stuff over here, which maybe will be more fruitful in terms of what we get. We want to conserve this tile because it is adjacent to 2 resources, so that's going to be nice. We are currently working stuff where we're going to play nice with the granary. We're going to want this tile. That way we can work this tile. This is where we want to put our unique district. It's going to count it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 adjacencies for the production. It's going to be really, really nice. So we want to get to that tile. And I think that us going granary makes sense from a growth perspective here, considering what we're working right now. And maybe lets us to kind of scale pretty well. We probably grab the fish next, but the fish are going to help us to grow other cities. So let's grab that there. And so I think that'll be good in an immediate sense. And then we also have a growth here. Perfect. Fantastic. We would like to grab this. The main reason being, of course, we're currently working on a wonder, and that would actually help us out a little bit. I don't think we're going to grab it in time, but we are going to get a pretty fast growth rate here, and we will override and build a key here at some point, or a key here, rather, at some point, so that'll be good for us once we get things going on here. But for the temporary time we're working this, we're going to replace this with an altar at some point. This is going to generate even more food with the granaries, so we are up to 13 food a turn in here. we are going to neutral greet Isabella again. I think our research agreement timed out, and so we're going to try research collabing her, and she will say yes, knowing that Ada, having denounced us, probably going to say no. We don't want to get her to hostile relations just quite yet, because we're not ready, because we do not have our Numidian cavalry just yet. We did concede a little bit of ground in terms of paying out to buy a slinger here, which we saw 2 units approaching, and figured that it was probably going to be necessary. Overall, this run, relative to the last one, we have some high roll instances and some low roll instances in that we didn't get a lot of goody huts here. So really, really light on the goody huts, but we also did get really good goody huts, and so early on, and really allowed us to kind of pop off and get the settlers out. But then this settler kind of dawdled around a little bit, took him a while, found Utica. Utica's not that great. Hippo's fantastic, kind of a little bit of an interesting one, but we are nowhere near, by turn 40, getting the additional settlers. We're going to instead have a wonder, though, by then, and I think the next thing we produce after this is settlers, and so that's going to be a decent spot. I think that in terms of purchasing, next purchase we have available, we are going to purchase right here, probably either an altar or a monument. It looks like an altar probably overall gives us more yields, and complete the quarter here, and then go right into settler. We're going to need to buy more buildings for ourselves in Carthage, because relative to what we were doing with Augustus, because Carthage has less construction, and we also don't have the gold advantage of buying in towns only, and so buying in towns is not preferable in the same way it is with Augustus, so we can feel free to buy in Carthage here as well. With the barbarians on the doorstep, and by barbarians I mean Romans, we do get a bit of an event here. We can choose 25 science, or we could choose a warrior. We're currently experiencing a little bit of this, which incidentally is kind of annoyingly breaking our ability to finish this wonder in time, so we've swapped to production of a slinger here, which we will use to kind of push these guys away and complete our wonder, which will give us gold, which will allow us to complete this quarter, which will allow us to finally be happy in life, at least this one. Very nice that we roll a farmer's market here. Missive from Isabella. I think notably the most effective ones that we are going to have are going to be science, just in the aggregate. Having science plus expansionist allowing us to give out farmer's markets would be pretty nice. We have militaristic plus science, so we can't give those out, but that is going to be pretty good for us. We also did manage to pick up this marble tile, which is going to allow us to get the great steel just a little bit faster. The town has the opportunity for a specialty. Now, I think that we're not going to specialize yet, but I think that we're probably going to run every single thing as a trade outpost. For now, we just want to accumulate more tiles, at least until we get, I think, 2 more tiles. I think we want to work this tile, and we want to work this tile, and then we're going to want to brick some tiles and this type of thing, but just to make sure that we get kind of everything we want. Maybe we want to come in for this, but we're not going to really need the infantry, and then maybe we just actually want to wait to go high happiness until we research, for what we are creeping towards the wheel here. But we can also, with Ada now, steal technological advancement, which is going to be tremendous and is going to give us an ability to get keys, because we are probably going to get the entire tech there for us ourselves, which is going to be quite a less than the influence cost, and it's going to be one of the ways in which we can kind of fight back on us not having a lot of science and culture, because we can get a decent amount of influence, especially if we go for villas. We can get this with villas. Let's just quickly show this. Villas are going to allow us to get +2 influence. We can get these buildings. They are not locked for the cities, and I believe that we could get the other happiness building here as well. I think there is one more. Is there not? Could have sworn there was another happiness building. Oh, arenas, I believe we can also build, and so this is a section of the tree that is going to be nice for us. But notably, if we go for Augustus, we will be able to get influence off of this as well, so transmuting the influence into yields is going to be a useful way in which we can try and get things to work. But the speed bump for the Great Steel was pretty bad for us, because that has slowed down our ability to work this tile with a quarter and also buy ourselves a, you know, an altar there, which I guess we'll do now because we can afford it. Oh no, wait, we can't. Soon we will be able to afford it. It's 300. When we finish Great Steel, we will get 200. So this tier, after a really explosive start, we did accidentally go one turn over here. Things did slow down a little bit. I think getting Utica down a little bit slow was not so good, and I'm thinking that maybe the play is actually mementos, pretty much regardless of who we are playing. Maybe we're supposed to go for the scientific attribute point alongside the one that gives us one additional settlement limit. I think things would have been, well, I guess it depends on what your scouting looks like, but I think that we would be in a much better shape going for early irrigation and then getting to 5 settlements really fast. And that this is maybe an advantage that Carthage has. And this is what we did with the Augustus game. As things stand here, though, we're in pretty good shape. We have Wonder, Great Steel completing in 1 turn, followed by a Colonist in 1 turn, and we very significantly, we're going to settle over here. At least one of the settles. The other settle is going to come over here and maybe settle immediately, maybe not. But I do think we're in good shape for getting stuff to start to pop off. We're about to get 200 gold. We're going to be able to buy some stuff out of the towns. I'm not sure which towns we want to buy out of specifically, but we're going to pick up a fish here, which is really nice because as far as resources go, the fish gives a lot of food. So the fish will be very nice for slotting into newly created towns in order to get them to grow as fast as possible. And we're planning on settling right here, which, okay, a lot of our tiles get bricked by these mountains, but that means we have a lot of really good adjacencies. We settle here, we're next to a resource, so we're going to get +1 size at the very outset, and we are going to get 2 wine, a horse, and these dates, which is going to like synergize perfectly with Charlamagne here, and it's going to allow us to really, really pop off. We also do have coming in kind of near-ish future this, which is going to lead into this increases the number of resources that may be assigned to the capital by 3. So by the time we do get the Numidian cavalry, they are going to be +7. And this is kind of, this is relatively close at hand. They're going to get +7 combat. And then I don't think if we are in a celebration, they are going to have +12 combat. And so that is going to be really, really strong just off the bat. And so that's kind of what we have cooking and coming up. If you guys choose to comment down below and or vote and upvote comments looking for us to continue this Charlamagne game, I think it definitely has a lot of play. I kind of think that if we aren't going to like pre-scout the map, that maybe you know, triple settler is the way to go, even though we kind of got that early production building, maybe even another settler. We bought a settler. To be fair, one of our settlers just dying here was pretty bad for us, and had we gotten that, we would be able to scout here and kind of know a little bit better where we want the settles to be. But after getting through that, I think that the +1 settlement limit in particular is going to be something that's really attractive to Carthage. So whether we get it off of our leader or we are getting it from a memento, I do think hitting that 5 settlement timing is going to be something that's attractive, because here we couldn't really do that, or maybe we should have just been sitting on 1 settler and go for 4 settlers and go for an early irrigation. I'm not really sure, but this has been interesting, and so let's try out the next guy. So after those 2 runs and the settlement really seeming to be kind of a strong one for the 5 settlement timing window for Carthage, I think we're going to go Xerxes King of Kings. That way we can get +1 settlement per age. I do think this scales pretty nicely into Spain. And then we are going to go for Lotus Blossom after the science thing not being as good as we thought it was on the Tundra. I think Lotus Blossom is probably just going to be better, and is probably just a decent shout, and it will give us both science and culture in the event that we end up being peaceful and not able to generate culture in this way. And then we're also going to go Eclipius Virtuous, giving us additional production, especially when we hit that window of the +5 settlements. This is going to be 4 production in the capital, which is going to be a pretty sizable amount depending on our role. And then we are also going to be getting 10% gold in all settlements. Most of what we're generating is gold because we have a ton of settlements that aren't turned into cities generating production. Instead, it's all gold. And so with Xerxes, King of Kings, there's a chance that we go for a lot more mining towns, which I think in general are not as good, but are a little bit more attractive off the back of the golden settlements, as well as the policy slot that we get from our civics, our unique Carthaginian civics, which give 20% gold in mining towns. I'm not entirely sure if this is multiplicative, but looking to push gold in this way is a little bit attractive, and so we're going to see what that maybe looks like. Alright, this is the first Xerxes run that we loaded into, and I almost want to re-roll this. And I want to re-roll this because I think that this is by far the best roll we've had. Not even close. The other ones seemed fairly average. I think we re-rolled 2 or 3 times in total in order to get those 2 runs. So just a very kind of middling type of thing. And here we have probably the best natural wonder for Carthage in the mountainous desert, which gives a ton of science and culture to adjacent rural tiles, and a science on the tiles themselves. We will be able to work this, and then it is also on the coast, so we will be able to settle over here, it looks like, and work the other side with an additional city or slash town in truth. And this just seems very, very, very strong. I think we're going to peel this off, but this is going to be really, really good, and we are going to settle, and we are going to get started on our scout and work our way probably just straight on over to this right here, because this is going to get plus additional stuff once we get the desert tile. So this will not get the additional yields until we grab this. Once we grab this, then we'll be cooking. However, if we grab this, we will lock it off from other tiles. So, no, wait. Just as soon as we settle the dates, then the dates will be worth additional culture as well. We get an early discovery of Hatshepsut. I think we're just going to go with a neutral greeting, but this does imply we might be hemmed in a little bit, and also our scouts might not be all that useful in general. I still think we go for triple scout. We're looking to push north first because we saw some tundra down here, which implies that there's probably not someone beneath us, so if there are goody huts to be contested, they are in the north here. Get lucky here. In theory, we maybe would have wanted to play nicer with Hatshepsut because we can roll this, but we do want to set ourselves up to be a little bit more warfare-oriented. Seeing the cotton over here is going to be pretty good. We are having to snake around over here, but the city, this city-state is probably going to disrupt our ability to settle the other side of this, although it looks like there might not even be a good settle on the other side of this to work the tiles. I mean, maybe we can settle up here, but then we're conceding having one city that is not going to be on the coast or able to access the coast unless there's some sort of settle down here. I mean, maybe we settle this mine where this is. Nope, this doesn't hit it. I don't know what's over here, but it might just be this weird formation where we're not going to get everything that we want. So I guess it's a little bit worse, but we are still going to get to work 2 of these tiles. I was a little bit mistaken in terms of us expanding. This is the 3rd tile out, so it's just going to be these 2 tiles that we can work in Carthage. In theory, we maybe should have moved over so that we could work all 4, but I think I like this a little bit better, even if this is slightly worse, because I think that we don't necessarily need this omni-powerful start. Not quite revealing what's over here, because the other side of the mountain, but we do reveal that it is what looks like 3 land tiles. I'm not sure if that's an inland tile, and we'll be able to scout up this way. Gonna have a nice settle over here where we're gonna hit the camels, which is a pretty good resource to hit, unless this is blocked by Hatshepsut. These guys, we're gonna look to snake all the way across over to the coast, looking to peek around a little bit, see if we can find some goody huts. We're gonna grab the northern goody hut with the idea that this additional scout that we're having is gonna come to the south, and then it's gonna come around, and this is gonna be nice for us. We are actually getting a brickyard pretty soon here, so we could actually, we maybe should have bricked this tile earlier. We're kind of okay with the 1 food, 1 production, but this 2 science, 2 production is probably just better. We kind of want the food so we can grow, but next turn we will be breaking this tile. We are getting extra food and happiness from the dates, though, so that is pretty good for us. But I think that, yeah, we probably should have bricked this on the last turn. We wanted to stick with it because we thought it was kind of an okay yield, 1-1, but, like, we didn't think that through because we have the wonder tiles to work. And so while we have the wonder tiles to work, even though they won't grow us quite as fast, they're still going to be pretty good. Yeah. a little bit less explosive here with the triple scout. We are 5 turns from getting our double settler here on turn 16, which is when we finished it with the Charlamagne open that involved the science bloom. We are rolling decently on the goody huts. Science and production is kind of exactly what we're looking for right now. We do finish our first wave of settlers, and we have a little bit of an interesting thing. This is an absolutely wildly good spot for us to have a city eventually. We got to scout this out a little bit better, but I think we're going to send one this way, despite this guy being right here. Also, incidentally, this is a crazy formation here because this is 5 adjacencies. That is a very interesting place. So maybe our ideal settle would actually be someone over here, but we are not going to be able to do that unless we take out this guy, which is not going to fit our timing. We do have a pretty nice settle right here, though, and so I think the scout that is the closest to that is going to go for that there in terms of picking up all the cities while simultaneously being able to work one of these tiles out here. I think that this is coastal, and so it'll be nice if we can right here put our unique district, which is what we can do, and so I think we're going to go and look to settle up right there. We have the scout. The scout, we're going to, I think, run up the river, and then I think we're going to be able to make better choices, certainly in game, if not in life, and then we will look to come this way and figure out whether we want to settle like here, which looks pretty solid, double gold, double cotton, really what we're looking for, or if there's some texture to what's going on in here that makes us want to operate a little bit differently. But we're immediately going into settler again. So we are going to be a little bit behind the second run, but kind of on par with what we're doing, looking to hit the 5 settlement timing, which of course Xerxes is helping to enable because we will have +1 settlement limit per age. Once the settlements get big, and once we get good resources that are giving happiness, we can even go over the limit, but I don't think you want to go over the limit right away. Although maybe as Carthage, if you just have an even number of settlement limit, you just go over anyways, because you're just always going to have an odd number of settlers once you include the capital. This settle we don't like that one bit, so we could raise that to the earth. Also, we could just like let it be, and they'll pick up some of the natural wonder tiles. We already got kind of the natural wonder tiles we were looking for. We might look to work this tile just to push them out of here with our next growth, or to lock in rather all the tiles possible for Carthage. If I recall correctly, Catherine is scientific and cultural, which means she can send both of those our way, and so I think we're actually going to friendly greet her, because we are going to like expansionist, scientific, and cultural, and so anyone who's got double of those, we will look to send a good missive to them, because they will be sending better versions of the Diplo agreement to us on the cultural exchange, this type of stuff. We will be able to get better exchanges from them. Ibn, for example, does have the ability to send for food, but his other one is the scouting one, which is not very good. So if we do want to be friends with exactly one person on this continent, I think it's probably Catherine. What do you know? Plus science, which is going to be good. Incidentally, we can send her plus science. She is very likely to accept. Oh no, we don't have plus science anymore. That was on the last guy. Yeah, unfortunately, we have military aid and open markets. Neither of which I think are quite worth it. We're approaching enough gold to be able to buy something, and we do see this guy, who's probably going to be blocking a decent number of our settles in terms of what we are looking at and where we can go. We do want to scout this out, but we are on our way to do that in terms of if we settle over here or not. Kind of inclined to settle here. Where we are going to get to pick up all the resources here. Just an absolutely insane number of resources. This wine was the result of a goody hut that we got that turned this into wine, and so I think that this settle here, just like, it's hard not to settle there at this point. You know, a settlement here looking to get this, and then another settlement like over here is maybe going to be a little bit better. Like, we could imagine a scenario where we settle here, right? No, we can't, actually. We'd have to settle, like, right here. And we'd get this tile, for example, that'd be great. We'd be able to build our unique district here, which would be great, and then we'd be able to build another city over here or something, and a city over here. But I think that with the timing and the fact that we want to get these cities out, I think it just doesn't quite work out. I think we're going to go for gold in all settlements, considering we're about to have more settlements, and that will be pretty good for us. We are trailing in technology, the truth hurts. A little bit of a classic Civ experience. Despite us having mutual diplomatic agreements, since Hatshepsut settled near our borders, she got a penalty towards, relations, and then she denounces us subsequently. Settled too close to another nation's capital. We haven't settled a city yet, girl, so that is entirely on her, but now I suppose we can't be friends anymore. So this is all kind of fine and well, because we do want to show off some of the things we want to do anyways. We'll probably sack these cities rather than taking them if we are to continue this run, but we could just wipe them off the map with the Numidian cavalry being so strong, and so we are getting a bit of an eye. I think that we're just going to settle here as a concession to practicality and trying to get cities down, because we have yet another wave of settlers coming through. In fact, actually, maybe that's even an argument for us to settle like right here, which we know is going to be kind of okay. We definitely want to settle the coast. We'll try and figure out if we could settle the coast. If we had gone something like a sailing, we would be able to sail around here at a pretty good clip, and it maybe would be even faster for us, especially if we're going on navigable rivers. But we did want to rush the irrigation so that we would have the additional thing. Catherine, being a bro though, so we'll stay friends with her. In retrospect, we actually should not have built the brickyard here. The reason being is, even though this slingshotted us, let us work more tiles here more quickly, this is a double adjacency to resources, so this is a good square for a library. Now it's a bad square to put specialists in. Specialists boost adjacencies, and since ageless buildings don't benefit from them, it's going to be not so good. I think that we maybe put the altar down here, though, in order to complete the quarter, so that we get additional science and culture relative to what we would get otherwise, and then I think we send both these settlers on over this way as best we can, because I do think that this is where both of our settles are going. This would maybe be like the biggest practical concession, would be settling over here, but we want to settle coasts, we want to get our unique districts, and so we're going to go down this way and hope that we can find reasonable spots to settle down here. We maybe kind of messed up scouting a little bit, but look, this looks fine, that we can settle down here. We do get our first settle as well. It's not adjacent to a resource, so we won't get boosted up immediately, and I think what we do is we just beeline the cotton, and then we beeline the fish in order to kind of maximize growth. And also those are going to be pretty good to work. We can buy soon in there. We could buy a building of some sort, but this is going to be a little bit of a slow burn getting this building, this city up and going, because while it has a ton of resources, all those resources are like on the outskirts. We'll want to buy out buildings towards this, though, because this is where we want to put our unique district, because it'll have the 4 adjacency and also nicely be right next to the fish. So I think we're going to get into some trouble here, so we're going to buy a slinger in this new town straight away, and then we also can take a look around. We see that we're going to have 4 things that pip plantations. We know that granaries are very, very strong if it's the first building you get, and so I think we're going to pick up a granary here to try and slingshot ourselves forward a little bit, and eventually look to improve this tile. We do have this lake tile, which we are probably going to use for our unique building, which has allowed us to settle inland a little bit here, and by doing that we brick our tile, and so now we can look to work something else. I think we're going to work our way over to the cotton, because the cotton is really fantastic, but 211 is pretty solid. We're not going to look to buy another tile, or sorry, to buy another building until after we get this gold, because that gold's going to be really good. But this was a bit of a concession towards we're floating a bunch of gold, we don't want to keep floating a bunch of gold, and so we got a little bit of spending down in this new town. We are now up to having 2 towns, but this is going to be just for the near future, because not for very much longer. Pretty sure you're not supposed to be going that way. Here, we'll send this guy this way, and then I think that we had an idea of settling right here. That way we would be able to work this. No, right here is where we wanted to settle. This guy's a little bit closer, and he's damaged, so we'll let him take the settle. It doesn't cancel movement unless you cancel the movement, so we'll do that. And then this guy is coming up and maybe going to have to look around over here for something to do. We did make these guys aggro us because we settled near them, but that's fine enough. Really, really nice is going to be the resources that we get in Rusicade here. We decided to go for the Cothan Civic first because production is a little bit more valuable in the capital, and we weren't really able to buy up the other building as effectively or early as we would have liked. So we will go for this here. It'll bring us a little bit closer to the fish. And now we have a very, 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 very awkward, cramped space situation. So we can have a city that basically has a quarter of a pop available if we want to settle here, or we can settle inland and just concede that not every one of our settles is going to be outland, but that would only generate 3 resources. We can run all the way up here and settle here for iron when we are going a cavalry civ. We could settle here to be able to get the cotton and not really much else, but we would have a settlement there. Or we could run all the way here. Nothing really looks good. The map is very cramped. And in retrospect, we maybe could have shifted cities around a little bit for things to be better. But this is looking quite uncomfortable overall. This is going to be a bit of a challenge that would be a lot easier if we removed people from the map. Like a Seleucia, if they were not there, we would have a nice settle over here. We could have a nice settle over here. We could have a nice settle over here, maybe. And maybe this is where we need to scout in particular. Just look straight north. But I think that this guy is probably going to come this way because this is where we have a road. I don't know where it's maybe faster to up here. I think running through here is maybe not possible. And so maybe we come this way. We don't really want to raise Artem because this prevents people from settling near us. So I think we actually might even want to soothe them, but maybe raise these guys, settle over here. Probably raise these guys given the current political climate and the fact that they don't allow us to take the cotton. But definitely a much trickier, cramped sort of situation we have relative to the 2 other runs where it felt like we had some breathing space. Here we're on... we're not going to get City 5 for like forever. And there's not really a good way to go about it unless we wanted to settle pretty suboptimally over here. Because we want every single city on the coast. I don't even know where Russia is. I guess she must be in the far north, but I think that this is a pretty small continent that we've rolled it here, which is a bit unfortunate considering when you're pushing settlement limit, more space is definitely something that you value. Our plan was to go for Sicilian Wars relatively early and try and push 7 cities, but considering we don't get the wide open space to be able to do that, I think what we're going to do is we're going to go for Code of Laws in order to get the merchant and eventually the steel government civics mastery, so this is going to be what we prioritize here now. I must say this came a little bit earlier than expected, but we do get decked by Hatshepsut, which is going to make all the silver really nice because I think we're going to need to buy units. We do see a Magi coming on in. I think that we will just go ahead and buy ourselves a unit here with the understanding that it's probably going to be the timing of where that unit is and what we could do with it is going to be a little bit better because I think we're going to be able to come here next turn, right, and then sling here. And so we'll get a couple extra damage on this Magi as he comes in, but kind of a narrow choke for them to try and push through with a river. I don't expect this to go too well for them. I think we'll be able to defend with a kind of not very much, but now this changes things a little bit, doesn't it? Because how are we going to march through here? We're not. So we are going to take a route over here, and we are probably going to settle double camels up here somewhere. Just look for something inland that is somewhat reasonable in terms of a settle. Look to get something done. look to take this guy out before he takes us out, shout out. And something to this effect, I think, is going to be what we try and do with this settler. We really would like double camel. Double camel would be nice because we could slot more stuff into the capital, and the more stuff we slot in the capital, the better our Numidian cavalry is going to be. This will make these guys upset with us, but who cares? And also, we're getting a little bit of scouting down here, and this is like kind of the last spot. We're going to get another 4 settlement limit, up to 9 over the course of this age. So I don't think we're going to be able to settle 4 things on the coast really that easily. So I think that maybe this is the way we need to play this, which is a bit unfortunate because if we had 7 settles on the coast and this type of stuff, I really think this is where Carthage shines. So even though we high rolled this wonder, we kind of low rolled our map seed in some regards because the map situation, it's going to be a while till we put down our 5th city, and so it's going to be a while till we hit this timing window, which is one of the weaknesses of Carthage, because if we were not playing Carthage, we would have had much different settles that would be maybe more reasonable. So the settling constraint is going to be a disadvantage for Carthage here as well, in order to try and make the best use of what you're given. But this is going to be a good settle in here, so it's also going to have horses, which will really help out the Numidian cavalry a little bit more. She is coming with quite a few more units than we anticipated. We're going to move the slinger back so that we can be able to buy a unit here, but this is a pretty big sink for us. I think we're going to buy a warrior, get a melee unit on here, and be able to defend this. I'm pretty sure, if not, 2 more turns, we will be able to buy another unit, but I think this is going to be substantive enough. But she is coming in pretty heavy. She took out one of our scouts up here, which is a little bit unfortunate. We're going to maybe need to use this scout to kind of try and figure this out, because I do think we want to put a city somewhere in here once this settler heals up. Settler kind of went through no man's land, a little bit damaged here, and so they are going to need to heal on up. We're going to move this guy forward and maybe be able to use the slinger to disperse here, but we desperately kind of need units, and we don't really have units, so that is a little bit unfortunate because we're split between a couple of different spots. I think that maybe we just move this warrior right along. He's semi-healed up, and we just get him up here to be able to take out this city-state here, to be able to get a safe settle up here and turn our focus onto Hatshepsut. But things are getting a little bit spicy up in this Bizzle, and so this is going to be interesting. If we do continue on this run, if this is the run that you guys think are interesting, Hatshepsut notably is going to build a ton of wonders. She's going to probably build them in Waset. If we take Waset, we get the wonders, and so in this way we can go for the legacy path for culture, despite not really having good terrain for building a whole bunch of wonders here in Carthage. We almost certainly can't push that golden age by ourselves here, and so we do need a little bit of help from her to build some wonders for us so that we can take them from her. What is nice is the amount of cotton that we have gotten in this run. Cotton is so strong. We are moving into the capital because it has production, but if the capital had way more production, if we were on Augustus, I think we would distribute the cotton out so we could grow our cities faster. Actually, let's distribute the cotton to here. We already have a good amount of production here, and Lepidus doesn't have very much food at all, and so it'll be able to grow a lot faster if we have additional food here, and then once they kind of get going, then we will be able to increase some of the stuff. I think we might next go for this fish in some sort of way, maybe here, pick up the fish, and then we probably are going to, we don't know whether or not this is a coast, but if it is a coast, then this will be 3 adjacencies for the coast for a unique building. So the unique building can eventually build over the key or the fishing boat we build here, and something else can build over here, so that'll be fairly good in Lepidus. Hippo just managed to pick this up, probably going to go for this into the fish, something like that, be able to grow pretty well. We still have to pick up another cotton, and then we will be on our way towards the gold. Really nice having this double gold, double cotton city. It's going to be really strong. And then up here, not sure what we're getting here yet. If we settled here, for example, we would be able to get well, yeah, it's kind of awkward. Everything's just slightly stretched a little too far out, which is why it's important to see if there's any resources under these 5 tiles that we got there. Catherine is an absolute bestie. She keeps sending us good agreements that we do want to engage in. We will, of course, do culture as well here, and be able to slot this in. So that is another celebration for us. We're coming up on being able to do writing too, which is going to be really great. But we are, oh boy, we are struggling. Yikes, the warrior's going to die here, actually. We're going to run this way and hope that the slinger doesn't follow us, but I think that this warrior is just dead. That is a bit unfortunate. The slinger just kind of very randomly over here. I mean, he did walk from all the way over here rather than pushing Carthage, so to that extent we're grateful that he didn't push Carthage, but is going to be able to pick off the already weakened warrior from us, which is not ideal. I think with that in mind, we maybe want to come back here and get the slinger ready to defend the city. And send the scout out around to try and avoid. But this is going to be a little bit rough. But we are coming up on turn 40. A little bit of excitement here. We are going to finish discipline on this turn, which is going to be nice. We're not going to swap in any policy change, I think, but what we will do is talk about which techs and civics we're going to research next. Here, I think we are going to be stealing. We just got the ability to steal civics. We could go for sailing. Let's take a look at the tree. We have all three of these, and so it is pretty tempting. I think we're going to go for masonry and then look to steal sailing straight away, because we know that everyone should have sailing except for us. So we will, with Hatshepsut, steal the technological advancement. So for the low price of 80, we should probably be getting that technology, which is going to be great for us, and will free up our ability to buy keys. In most of these cities, we have a key that we want to buy, a fishing key, and so that will be good for us. As far as the civics go, also as far as us pushing this, I think that we want to go masonry into the wheel and get the Numidian cavalry in order to try and defend here. And incidentally, we can buy villas. Villas are going to give Diplo. We can use that Diplo to continue to steal technologies, and we can set ourselves up to also steal civics. So for the civics stealing, we are going to need to come in here and go Code of Laws into the Mastery. I think that's what we're going to do. We don't really need to push for a settlement limit at this point in time, so we're not going to. And so I think we just go straight away for this, and that will be our plan for now. Really kind of experiencing some significant pain. We can buy another unit. We would rather save up and buy buildings. We don't want to buy a building until we grab this, though, so that is something. Man, we're getting pushed in all directions here. Hatshepsut is everywhere until we get the Numidian cavalry. Then we will just run right through her, because just for a frame of reference, we have 4 resources. We are finishing a Kothan building up right here, so we will be able to slot in 6 resources into the capital. With that, we will be getting +6 on our Numidian cavalry. The advantage she gets is +8 because we are on deity, but once we get that plus the Numidian cavalry, I think they just have 5 more off combat strength than a normal unit. We will be able to kind of roll her up, and then as we get more advantages, as we eventually unlock some of the civics, because if we take a look at the tree, we can get not the settlement limit, although that will be good. I think this mastery increases the resource capacity that can be assigned to the capital. Once we get this, we'll be getting +9 on the Numidian cavalry, and so that'll be really good. We could get extra movement on the Numidian cavalry and sight, depending on how this war kind of evolves here. And I think we'll be raising her cities pretty aggressively, and then taking Waset, and then being able to settle near where Seleucia is, maybe over here, and maybe up here, something like that, and still get things done. Maybe we want to take her out of the game entirely, but that is something that will maybe be decided depending on what you guys want to see. So comment below / like the comments that are for what you want to see, whether you want to see a continued run as Augustus, Charlamagne, or Xerxes here. Let me know, and we will continue the run alongside that one, or if it's close between 2, we might continue 2 runs in parallel depending on what you guys want. But if you like this video, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. If there's another civ you would like covered in this way, where we are showing 3 different starts up to turn 40, please let me know. And other than that, have a good one.